And it says we're off. All right, good morning. It is Friday. Today needs to be a painting stream because I need to get this map on its way. My name is Shay, and I am excited to have a working session this morning. So yeah, what I'm working on today is the map for my Patreon. I do a map every month for them, geography maps usually, and I'm in the process of doing that right now. Hey, there's a Patrick. Hello, darling. How are you? And there's Stephanie. I love the bee too. Thank you. Dexter, hello, darling. How are you? It's been forever since I've gotten to hang out with you. This is not a commission map. This is for the Patreon for this month. I do have Dexter's map to get finished. And I had another commission come in last night, but that one is going to have to wait because I've actually been contracted once I'm done Dexter's map to help with the board game design for a board game for a college here that's focused on helping English as second language users to speak about their work experience of all things. It sounded really cool. So I'm excited about that. That'll be kicking up. It will be an interesting experience. I've never done anything like it before. So should be fun. New. Yeah, I'm excited. Laura is here too, but working. All right. Hello, love. The theme of this month's map is geography, as it usually is. The compass rose, I don't know if you can see it really well, is a bee. in honor of Misty B, who snuck an octopus into one of her maps for me recently. And that just made me feel ridiculous. So I was like, okay, I got to do something cool in return. I haven't really been in a mapping zone for the last couple of weeks. Just life stuff has kind of been doing its thing, and then Dave got home and we had to do the isolation and the reintegration, and that kind of occupied my brain for 2 weeks. So it's a bit of a struggle, actually, to sit down at the desk and be like, look, you need to be productive. Get on it. So thank you for being here with me today while I kind of try to break myself out of the rut. Sometimes you just get a little bit burnt out on the stuff that you're working on. I definitely think that I'm experiencing that a little bit. All right, coastline. Today I got news from my old professor saying he's still interested in doing a PhD with me, which would be on bees. Oh my goodness! That would be so exciting, Dexter. Oh my goodness, yes. A roundabout way of saying I really like the bee. Oh, my Cheshire cat mug. Yeah, it's the best. It's got the Cheshire on the other side too. I love it. I'm really excited for you. I had goals of doing a PhD too, but then we ended up out here. I wanted to write about the confluence of the self-help movement with creative people, and specifically like women's cults, like cults of personality, cults of behavior, stuff like that. I think it could have been really, really great. I'm really interested, like my master's is in ritual and why and how we conduct ritual as a society to order ourselves and how to make ourselves understandable to ourselves and to other people. And so I wanted to progress that into creative rituals. How is it that people organize their creative processes? Does that have a spiritual component for some people and for not for other people? If so, how do they talk about it? Why do they talk about it that way? Um, it was it was going to be such a great project. I was super excited about it. I'm talking about neoliberal consumerism, like that whole postmodern bend. That's kind of where I'm in my element. Like I miss schools so much, you guys. I really, really do. It is a thing in my world. Oh no, my liquid latex has been leaking. Oh no. Well, crap. Oh, that's going to be a problem. Something you'd like to use in your teaching. Yeah, that would be really fun. I can go back to the topic, but realistically, I'm not in a position to pursue my PhD now or possibly until Dave retires, just because we are unlikely to be living in a place. I would have to go to Toronto, is my guess. That's certainly the program that I looked at and wanted to go to. And so Dave can't work in Toronto. Like there's very little opportunity for him with the rank that he is in the army in Toronto specifically. So we would have to commit to living apart for 4 to 6 years in order for me to pursue my PhD. And I'm not prepared to do that right now at all. So it's just going to have to wait or possibly be a never thing, which was a big adjustment because I had just finished my master's when we moved out here. I had planned on teaching at the university as a sessional instructor and kind of getting the work experience that I needed in order to be able to move on to like a PhD and then eventually a teaching profession was the goal. But yeah, all of that kind of turned on its head when I got married again. But I mean, I don't regret it. I'm pretty happy with my situation. It's just a little frustrating in terms of, you know, you work for years and years on a master's thesis and then don't get to use any of what you've done. So that's its own thing for sure. So now you guys get to hang out with me while I do the boring part of this. No, we're gonna use the actual brush. Oh, dead brush, where are you? Misty B is amazing, Laura, and everybody should follow her. She just does the most incredible work. She's one of the biggest reasons that I would like to get into digital painting, because just what she's capable of on her Cintiq blows my mind. Like there's just a level of detail because she can work so small and then zoom in, zoom out with that program and that platform that I wish I could get to. It would be just so much fun, I think, to do. And that's partly why I'm excited about this contract for the board game. It would be a really, really good payday for me. It would be just about half the cost of the Cintiq that I want, or possibly the entire cost of an iPad Pro. I think I'd have to check on the cost of the Pro. But I've been looking more and more at getting a digital tablet platform, just to see what I'm capable of doing on one. Because I think that's kind of the direction that I'm interested in taking my map making. Having more like city details and stuff like that. So I think it could be really cool. A little bit nerve-wracking though, like, I'm not somebody who's hugely technologically proficient, as evidenced by the million problems that we've had with the stream over the course of the last year. So the idea of learning a whole new technological platform kind of gives me a little bit of hives, but I think it would be worth it. And I figure like it probably can't be worse than like learning how to paint watercolor or one of the other new media that I've taught myself. It maybe won't be like my ideal format, but I think it could still be worth doing. Yeah, I definitely do use all of my knowledge when I'm creating my game stuff, Dexter. You're not wrong on that score at all. I think that my education gives me a much more nuanced approach to world building in some situations because I'm thinking about different dynamics of power and just cultural questions in general, because that's what I've been taught and trained for, specifically around things like gender and law, because I did a lot of work on legal stuff in my master's about the status of same-sex marriage in Canada and the United States. Things like that. But yeah, it's super useful. My Sharona, yeah, no kidding. It's been in my head. It's been in my head. It's not my fault. You have a Wacom, Laura? You bought it when you were doing graphic design. The thing about the Cintiq is that, and I don't know which Wacom you have. I have a Wacom Intuos. I find I don't like it because I can't see what I'm doing when I look down at my hands. It's a solid black surface, and the Cintiq has the responsive screen under your hands, so you can see what lines you're putting down in the same way as if you were drawing on paper. And I think that that is my preference. The same as the iPad Pro working in Procreate. I think that would be my preference because that's like how my brain has been trained to draw for the last 30 years, is I can see what I'm doing in relation to my hand movement as I look down. I've done some work with my Intuos. Not a lot though, just because I find it so not intuitive that I just get frustrated. But I don't know. I want to go like sit in an Apple store one day just for the entire day and screw around on Procreate and just see what I think of that particular platform. There's no Cintiq store in Canada. I would have to go to the States to play with an actual Cintiq before buying it, which just is such a huge commitment to make in terms of travel. But also, like, buying a Cintiq is probably going to cost me close to $5,000, which is a huge commitment anyway. So I wonder if I should just save up the additional money and go for that trip. Make sure that it's what I want, or else make sure I've got a real good return policy. Yeah. It's an Intuos as well. Yeah, that makes sense. They were the most like accessible in terms of affordability and stuff, which is why I have one. But I definitely don't find that I use it nearly as much as I could. I do like it for editing on Photoshop if I'm like taking out mask lines and stuff with my maps. Or other like Photoshop cleanup. I find that's when I use it the most because I find that more successful than wielding a mouse. But I don't love it for straight up drawing. I have a lot of admiration for people who make epic art with them, though. Like, it's completely possible to do. I'm just spoiled and likely to complain. Yeah, absolutely. Ask away, Dexter. I'll give you whatever answer I can. Probably hugely. Yeah, that's pretty much an understatement. I agree with that. When you say sexuality, though, what do you mean? Do you mean like gender orientation? Do you mean the actual like sexual orientation? Do you mean sexual activity? Because there's a couple different ways that word can be used. And it's helpful for us to all be on the same page with the word. Just to make it discussable. One of the ways that I've handled that in the past is to invite people to ask anonymous questions. If you have a format for doing that, particularly online, that might be difficult because you're dealing with like emails and stuff like that. And then just pick a question and start from there. What age group are you dealing with? Sexual identity. Yeah, for sure. Okay. 15. Yeah, that's definitely old enough that they're going to be wondering about that, a lot of them, if they already are. There are some really good books on this kind of stuff. I'm just struggling to come up with titles in my head right now. For the rest, you teach biology. That's legit. That's legit. Biology is the way to go. 3 cheers for biology. I think the biggest thing when you're talking to teens about this kind of stuff is to be affirming. I don't know you well, but I'm assuming that if you're bringing this question up to me, you're someone who believes in equality and fair social justice for people of all orientations. And it shows that you care about your students and want everyone to be comfortable and included, which I think is just a really big deal. I think so, yeah, my first step would be to be affirming and just say that it's okay to know and it's okay to not know your orientation at this age. And if it's obvious to you, that's great. And if it's not obvious to you, that is also fine. And that there are people and resources available to support them. I would say that you're committed to, if you can be committed to, you're not obligated to take this on, helping them find those resources if they discover that they need them. That's an act of allyship that is pretty important, especially for younger kids who don't necessarily know how to research what's available within their community or online, in the safest and most effective way. But again, like, that level of allyship can be really time consuming and emotionally draining depending on what's going on. So you need to be sure that you're prepared to take that on if that's something that you decide to offer. There's no shame in saying that you can't. And probably some good reasons why you should be careful about doing it if you're a teacher. I don't know what the situation is like there in the Netherlands, but I know that in Canada, there's like more and more rules governing kind of teacher interactions with students, so that boundaries are kept professional, which I think is a shame because, like, when I was coming out in high school, there was one teacher, Mrs. Lubick, who was just the most incredible human being. And she was the first person I ever came out to and was like, "Hey, so I'm into girls and I don't know what to do about this." It was a Catholic school, so that felt like a really loaded confession. Um, and it was a really nebulous period of time for me. But she was just amazing. She didn't treat me any differently. She didn't even have to do that much. She was a safe person for me to talk to. And I feel like that was exactly what I needed in that moment, was just to be heard and to be seen and to be told that I was valid. And I feel like that's the biggest act sometimes, is just that bearing witness. Um, yeah, sorry, I had to look up at the chat here. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, see themselves and others the way they are, for sure. So yeah, anonymous questions provide affirmation and provide research material. Absolutely, absolutely. And make sure that yeah, make sure that, like, the research stuff is a combination of, like, online and if there's anything local. Like, I don't know if you guys have a queer peer support group or if there's like a pride center in your city. But if you have access to like local resources as well, those can be super, super powerful, because then you're actually meeting other queer people if that is something that is desired by your students, um, which can just be very different than having all of your interactions online, because online can be such a loaded place. Lillian is that teacher. Yeah, she was just one of the most amazing people. Um, Yeah, so the GSA is a really good place to start, like, remind them that that is there and that they are eligible to participate. And in that context, remind the straight kids that it is completely fine to show up to the GSA and be an ally. And that, a matter of fact, it's super important not to be completely passive about it. If they share these values, then their participation makes the world safer, literally, for everybody, and shows that they're willing to stand up for their beliefs. I think that level of activism is really something that we should encourage in students that age, because it can lead to a lifetime of activism, which I think you need to be in order to be a responsible citizen now. Having opinions that are informed and well educated, and that you're willing to speak up for and stand for, I think is just becoming more and more important with the way that the political structure of our society is changing, especially in the wake of like social media. That's part of the reason why I emphasize the research, because, like, if you don't know how to find good quality sources, the internet is gonna steer you wrong. Like, its misinformation level is just so catastrophically high. If you don't know how to research and find good quality shit on it, like, you're gonna be out of luck. And especially for queer kids, like, they're already such a vulnerable population that getting misinformation is really not a good thing. Yeah, you're completely welcome. And I mean, anytime this is something that I'm pretty passionate about, it's definitely something that has been relevant to me at various points in my life. Um, my attraction to women has not gone away just because I got married to a guy. Um, it's very much something that I contend with on the regular. Contend is a bad word, but it's just a part of my life. It's very normal and very natural for me. And I've been thinking like it's probably not just to women. Like I have attraction to non-binary genders as well. So that's been an interesting realization as I've gotten older. I think gender identity is also really a critical thing to talk about when you're talking about sexuality because there's a lot of pressure to understand yourselves in regards to the sex that you are or are not having. Um, oh, yeah, that's another thing. Affirm asexuality as real and as nothing to be ashamed of. It's not just about the sex you're having. The sex you're not having is also completely fine. And our society is so hypersexualized that it can be really alienating for people who are asexual to be like, but I don't feel any of this shit. Like, does that make me broken? Does that make me less of a person? Um, and that kind of stuff can be hugely damaging as well. So we want to look out for our ace kids too. What was I saying? I got off topic. But yeah, gender identity as a separate piece from sexual orientation because they're not the same thing. And for a long time, most of our civil discussions were based on sexual orientation because it was about right to marry. And that was predicated on who you were sleeping with. But now we're seeing a lot more, especially in North America, a lot more conversation about transgender rights and non binary gender rights and freedom of expression related around to those issues. And so that is something to keep in mind as well is that attraction and gender expression don't exist on the same axes at all. I had a great conversation with a friend of mine, Fox, a number of years ago, who argued very effectively. I found it persuasive that even sexual and romantic attraction don't have to be on the same axis. I know people who are married in a homosexual relationship that are dating other in a heterosexual context, and their romantic attraction is more towards their male partner, but their sexual attraction is more towards their female partners. And I was just like, I'd never thought about parsing it out that discreetly before. I always kind of assumed those two things had to be in lockstep. And so to hear this friend of mine talk about that was really, really interesting and gave me a lot of food for thought in terms of, okay, like, how do I feel about this? Does this impact my life? Um, and it just taught me to think a lot about like axes of attraction. Like, I definitely am more intellectually attracted to certain types of people. And for me, that intellectual attraction has to be present before I get interested in ever sleeping with them. If you can't carry on a great conversation and really impress me with your brains and your caring of other people and your just awareness of the world, like I'm never ever going to be like, yeah, you can buy me a drink. Which makes me snobby. 100%. I am willing to cop to that. Or at least I think it can be interpreted as being snobby, but really it's just where my interest lies. And I find like I know people who won't talk to somebody unless they're a blonde. So I don't find it, I guess, any stranger that I have a hard time creating meaningful relationships or sexual chemistry with people that I can't talk to. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's weird. Maybe it's not. Not 100% sure about that. Sorry, this is probably a lot of information. Um, so that's the thing. To be fair, women are beautiful. Yeah, they really are. Um, you're not known with binary people in a way that can represent them. So should you call in help? If you have help, absolutely call in help. Absolutely call in help if you have help. That is something that shows really great allyship. Um, and especially that you can then produce like a living person who can answer questions that you can't speak to. Um, so that is definitely a thing. If you can get someone in there who can speak to it authentically and from that position, you always should. Always. In my opinion, anyway. I mean, you doing what you can for it is better than doing nothing about it at all. And always choose action, because action is where the hope and the help is. But if you have access to someone who can actually speak to it from a first person perspective, you're enabling that, and that's a really powerful move. I've also found in my course of experience that when people meet me, they tend to like me. Like, not to blow my own horn or anything, but I'm a fairly charismatic person. I get along with people really easily. Whatever. And when they find out that I'm not straight, and they find out that I don't necessarily believe in the gender binary as my own identification, I am somewhere in the gender neutral spectrum myself, it seems to make those concepts more approachable for them because they already like me. And so I'm clearly nothing to be feared. So maybe these concepts that have been kind of freaking them out for a while are also less to be feared. Not nothing, but less, because they know somebody now, and that somebody is clearly like not a scary human. So that, I think, plays a role too in helping people kind of get their thoughts in order and their comfort levels sorted out. When you can prove to somebody like, hey, I really am very, very much just like you, it makes it harder to hate on people. Empathy is something that we should be working on teaching our kids too, right? So I think empathy is like the biggest thing you want to be teaching when it comes to gender and sexuality. Just that permissiveness and that patience and that care for other people is such a big deal. This is kind of a soapbox of mine. Sorry, friends. Like, I am very, very passionate about this subject. Actually, I don't know why I'm apologizing, other than you probably showed up to just watch me draw a map, but we're here now. So yeah, I think picturing yourself at that age is helpful, just because it kind of puts you back in their shoes a little bit. But just remember that not everybody is where you are. Some people are going to be farther along, and some people are going to be farther behind. Like, my mom left home when she was a kid at 13. She was very, very young. She made that decision for herself. And she had me ready to go at 11. Like, she basically told me, I knew from a very young age that that's something she'd had to do. And she said to me, like, you're going to be prepared to go if you ever need to go for whatever reason. And I never needed to. I didn't leave home until I was 17. But she had me ready. So by the time I was 15, I was really, really, really mature for my age, which was a good thing because I was grappling with, like, being in the closet, having my first girlfriend, and long distance relationships, and all of this stuff, like, and I handled it honestly really, really well considering, but I started dating younger than I probably should have because I was way more mature for my age. Um, all kinds of situations kinda get you in over your head when you're ahead of the curve in that regard. But yeah, just trying to be in their shoes is important because that creates compassion of its own too. So, just whatever you do, don't teach them you can get pregnant from somebody ejaculating in a hot tub. I'll have to come over there and beat you. None of that misinformation, please. My mom is an interesting human being. She's one of the most kind and comparing and compassionate people that I know. Um, she's made some pretty interesting and sometimes terrible life choices in the course of her life, but she's always learned from them, and she's always pretty careful about taking care of the people around her. She's the kind of person that, like, would instantly mother all of my friends. Um, if you were a friend of mine, you were automatically kind of one of her kids, and that was really amazing. She's made some decisions in the last couple of years that have been really hard for me, and so we're currently not speaking. Haven't been for about a year, almost 2. So, that's a little hard sometimes, but I think it's the necessary thing right now. Eventually, we'll get it figured out, I think. Alright. Yeah, 17 is young. You're not wrong, Dexter. An hour's bike ride. I don't think anybody in Canada measures that by bike. An hour driving in a car, maybe. Or the toilet. I'm confused. Or the toilet what? My mom tells me as a girl she was told roller skating got you pregnant. Oh my goodness, really? Bible Baptist Church. Yeah, that makes sense. There was a lot of that kind of stuff that went around. Mom and I will get there. Mental illness is a complicated thing, and especially when you're both dealing with it. So my stability is hard won and hard earned, and I'm not willing to sacrifice it just yet when she is not stable enough to sustain it. So hard decisions, but they have to be the right ones. Toilet seat was a way of getting pregnant when you were in school. Yeah, for sure. That kind of stuff just makes me so upset. Like, how hard is it to teach the appropriate methods? Really? Like, come on. Oh, I was reading an interesting article the other day about how teaching people to like properly mask up and whatever for coronavirus was like the same as comprehensive sex education, and just telling everybody this is a virus that's just going to go away and it's not a problem is abstinence only education, where it doesn't set anybody up with the tools to be safe and to be secure and to protect other people. And so I was just like, this is the best metaphor ever. Like, I agree completely. And it definitely just made me go, oh, come on. Yeah, for sure. For sure, for sure. Very funny. I didn't realize I'd done that. I just need to go get some water so I can start painting, you guys. I forgot to grab some before the stream started. Just give me 1 second. Random and informative. Well, I'm glad it's random and informative. Hey, other bipolar child, unite. Me too. It can be really alienating to have an illness that your family doesn't understand. Unfortunately, it runs in my family like pirates with wooden legs. My grandmother, my mother, my brother, and I all have it. And that is complicated. My brothers came on as a child, which was very, very complex. Mine came on when I was a teenager, which was still complex. And my mom's and my grandmother's both came on when they hit menopause, which was unexpected. So that whole situation kind of got a little hanky. Marla, hello, love. Welcome. I'm glad you got to sleep in and have a cozy morning. At least I hope it was a cozy morning. We are having a fairly in-depth conversation about gender and sexuality and mental health. Welcome. If this is too heavy of a morning topic for you, I completely understand. But we are being affirmative and inclusive. So if that is something that appeals to you, you are completely welcome. I do have bipolar disorder, Dexter. I've had it since, or at least I was diagnosed when I was about 15. I'm currently 37. I was medicated for a while as a teenager, and then like a stupid idiot went off my meds when I was 18 or 19 and was off them for about 10 years, which were very, very hard years. But I made those decisions, and I still succeeded in a lot of things despite making those decisions. Went back onto my medication during grad school, and that was the right call. I am very well done, very well taken care of now, incredibly stable, very med compliant. My symptoms are very manageable. So the rest of the people in my family, unfortunately, who struggle with this are not as stable as I am, struggle more with med compliance and having the right kind of treatment. So that's a challenge for me, for sure. I have a friend in the Navy who's gender fluid in a poly marriage. Yeah, you were driving through that conversation earlier. That makes sense, Laura. Yeah, I think the Army can be a really challenging place to not be a straightly conforming person. And I don't mean straightly in terms of like orientation. I just mean like categorically simple. I know that there's been challenges within the Canadian Forces for people who are transitioning and stuff like that, not necessarily from their superiors in a system where they are obligated to try and help have a soldier successfully transition, but through the culture of other people, especially older service members who just have not made the transition into a world where this is normal. So that can be hugely challenging. I can't imagine that the Americans are anything better. I would like to think they are, but I've heard a lot of news reports that convince me otherwise. The American military can be a rough situation depending on what's going on. I find they treat their people so disposably. My mania peaked 5 years ago, 5 years into my military career, and then snapped when I got divorced. Oh, that sounds brutal, Patrick. I'm really sorry. Your sergeant was gay and was best man at your wedding. That's awesome. I'm super glad that you got to have a more positive experience with that than the news that I read. And I mean, that's one of the biases of social media, right? You generally only get the negative stuff. So it's super important to hear the positives because then we know that that shit is actually happening and not just the negative all the time. I find it interesting to hear others' life experiences so I can know more outside myself. Well, I'm grateful for that. I think if we all spent more time doing that, the compassion would be larger in our world, and I think we would all be doing so much better for ourselves and other people. I genuinely believe that empathy and compassion are the way forward, and they're harder ways. I understand why they are not efficient, but I believe they are far more effective, and I just want everybody to get on the same page as me, damn it. I really, really do. All right, let's see about some of this, shall we? Oh, Stephanie, I've still got my Sharona stuck in my head. This is such a problem. My Sharona. All right, where's my paint? You guys would not believe what a disaster my office is right now. That is not the drawer. This is the drawer. That is not the drawer. Is this the drawer? No, that is also not the drawer. Okay. Question mark. It's because it's not in a drawer. It's on the floor. All right. What do we got? Lunar black, not what I'm looking for. Lunar violet, not what I'm looking for. Sodalite genuine, that's what part of what we're after. Lunar blue, that's the other one we're after. And we'll have some Mayan blue genuine as well. So yeah. Yes, Calgary did pass the law to make conversion therapy illegal. That's friggin' stellar. I was so excited about it. Yeah, your experiences back during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Well, yeah, because Don't Ask, Don't Tell was only repealed less than 10 years ago, I think. And so Yeah, that is an honor. Absolutely, Patrick. Good for you for being someone who is safe and trustworthy, because that is not true for everyone. I'm sure he felt relieved to be able to be honest and real with someone. I don't know if you guys can hear Saxon snoring behind me now. He has come to join us. My poor vision and lack of coffee misread the statement. Ah, okay, I follow. Must have coffee, that's true. Learning about bisexuality was like a light bulb moment. Looking back on my early life with that knowledge was like, oh, that makes sense. Having a word for it. Oh, I know. I felt having a word for it when I found out about non-binary gender was just the most massive thing. I always presumed part of the reason why I identified as bisexual was because in order to feel the way I felt about my gender, I had to be a butch lesbian. And that was super confusing for me because I still had an attraction to men and I didn't necessarily feel butch, but that was the only real language that I had access to growing up. And so learning about non binary gender as I got older was just like, oh my God, this is what makes sense. Like, here we go. Fabulous. This is awesome. Um, Conversation therapy is regular therapy. Yeah, true story. Um, this group is pretty diverse, but we're also regular people who tell about our lives. Like, um, I think, I think when one person is willing to be vulnerable and speak to their experience, it really helps other people to feel safe doing that for themselves as well. Um, and so I definitely think that it's a thing that can happen and happen well. I don't know if you guys have ever read any Brene Brown. She's a sociologist who does research on shame and vulnerability. Her one of the things that I love about her so much is she writes for a lay audience, though. You don't have to be an academic to read her work and to benefit from it. And I find her research just incredibly helpful for learning how to deal with aspects of shame and vulnerability, not just for myself as a person, but also for people that I'm dealing with, friends or family that are maybe struggling with stuff that I wouldn't know how to deal with. But she gives you like a template and stuff for kind of figuring that out. And I find that just incredibly useful. All right, let's let that settle. Marla, I had an aha moment when I was younger too. My uncle is gay and I always felt there was something more to him, but it was never talked about. I didn't know. Yeah, for sure. I understand what that's like. I'm almost 32, so I feel really comfortable with myself, my sexuality, and discussing it. Well, that's awesome. Good job. Willing to talk about nearly anything openly if I think others would benefit from the process. Yes, that is something that I completely agree with. I believe very, very much in being someone who is open and can share, especially if it's a teachable moment kind of thing. Um, oh no, I got liquid latex in my good brush, you guys. Ah, no, 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 no. Get out, get out, get out. You are not allowed to be here. There we go. If I can teach, if I can help, if I can support, like those are things that I am always going to prioritize doing for sure, for sure. You knew it pretty dang early without a word for it. Thanks, Disney. I get that. Um, I feel like we're safe enough with the people in the chat to talk about anything that comes to mind. I feel like that. I like that we have such a comfortable group on the chat. Like the internet is not necessarily known for that, and I love it. Is that what's scary, Dex? Is that we can all talk on the chat, or is something else scary? Is it scary that Disney was the one that educated Marla about her attraction? Because, you do what you can with what you got. Find being able to share your thoughts and emotions a bit scary. That makes sense. I mean, there's always imminent rejection possibility involved in sharing. You're not ever sure exactly how what you're saying is going to be received, and you want it to be received generously and with compassion and care, but that's not something that we always experience. I find that the more honest and open I am about things, the more likely I am to be met with compassion and care, at least recently in my life, like the last 10 years or so. I think confidence in that comes with being older too, though. Like I'm a pretty forward person about a lot of stuff because if it's gonna help, I'm gonna say something. But I think that also comes with the fact that I am articulate, I am well researched, I am educated about the stuff that affects my life because I've chosen to make myself that way, which puts me in a position to speak with some confidence regardless of whether or not I'm going to be rejected. And I think that helps. um, Hard to do. That's why I went to therapy to do some mindfulness and get better in touch with what I feel and how to share that. For sure. If you don't know how you're feeling, it's super hard to articulate. Like what that's one of the hardest things about when somebody asks me how are you doing? It's like, "Oh crap, now I need to run this equation in my head to figure out how I'm doing. What if I don't know? What if I can't say the words?" I really prefer like, "How are you?" because the doing aspect just kind of stresses me out a little bit, I guess. We're like a talk show cast. We're the Monocled Six. Yay. You try to work on it with ups and downs. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm sorry that you had a lot of fights. That's gotta be a hard experience. I'm glad that you're working on it, though. Like, I think that that's a super powerful thing to go through, and it really helps you to feel more confident and enabled in your own life. It took a lot of patience for my fiancé to when we first started dating to get to me discuss emotions. My family are bottlers. It took time to be able to open to being vulnerable and comfortable. Yeah, for sure. For sure, for sure. I completely understand that. I'm kind of in an opposite situation with Dave where um, I've had to teach him to be patient with me being emotional because he is just not. Like, he is one of the most stoic people I've ever met in my life. So I cry at the drop of a hat. Like, give me a good Tim Hortons commercial and I'm done. Like, it's the reason we don't have cable. Um, but Dave had to get used to the fact that just because I'm emotional doesn't mean I'm irrational or any of those presuppositions. He's much better about it now. The Monocled Six, The Secret Society of the Octopus. I love it. I feel like that could be the great second title of a book or a movie or something. We all have our stuff. Yeah, we do. Everybody's got a story that could break your heart. You just have to remember that. It's all relative. And what's difficult for you might not be hard for somebody else. What's easy for somebody else is not easy for you. Like, that's what I mean about having the compassion and the empathy. It just makes the world a lot more tangible. Occupy the octopi. Tentacle spectacle. Okay, that just sounds like we might be getting into the hentai territory, so we need to be a little careful with that. The coffee is done. Delightful. My direction, just a little bit. That's good, Marla. I'm happy for you. You don't have to be sorry, Dexter. It's worth the chuckle. That's for sure. 9 years. Yeah, that's fabulous. Congratulations. Dave and I just hit 5 or 6 years, depending on which one of us you ask. He thinks we've been together for 6. I think we've been together for 5. We have been for sure married for 4. We can agree on that. So, not everyone has a story to tell. My mother's insisted on writing her life story, but is dry and without direction. I think if she could get to a level of, like, granularity about the decisions that she made and stuff in order to keep it dry and without direction, that alone is interesting. Usually without direction means you resisted the urge to peel off and go somewhere else at some point. I feel like my life is boring and without direction right now, but that meant that I resisted the urge to peel off to go do my PhD and to do other things. So, gonna get married this year, but all of this happened. We're waiting till next year. Yeah, I can understand that. The wait, I think, is gonna be important for the celebration. I wouldn't want to be getting married in the midst of this right now. Just be more joyful to have everyone around you and less social stress just happening in the ether of the world. Yes, there is photographic proof of 4 years married. Um, well, I don't have a picture from this year. We have a picture from last year. Um, but there was proof of our wedding day. Those are on Facebook. Dave was so gooned. He had worked a 96-hour work week that week. I had picked him up from Kingston and driven back to Hamilton. We didn't get into Hamilton until 2 o'clock in the morning and slept on a futon mattress on the floor and then got up. I think we had to be at the elopement place for 10 o'clock in the morning. So we both got like maybe 5 or 6 hours of sleep. He was just wrecked. Like, oh my God. I don't think he was legally capable of consenting to getting married because he was so overtired. But he was like, "We're doing this. It needs to happen." I was just like, "Oh, okay. I guess we're doing this." Um, it was pretty funny. It's more a scrapbook than biography. It's still very encouraging because she needs something productive to do in her golden years. Yeah, that's fair. Everybody needs a project for sure. We were only going to have 10 people to witness and go for lunch, so it wasn't much of a stressful event. See, that's the way. The first time I got married, it was a giant wedding. It was like 250 people. It had all of the stuff, and it was so stressful and so much money and just, ugh, not my thing at all. When Dave and I got married, we eloped. There were 9 people there. 2 of them were extras that were taking photos for us, and it was just so much more chill. We went to a great tapas restaurant called Rapscallion in Hamilton afterwards and just ate the chef's menu, and it was ridiculous. It was so good. The only thing I would change is that Dave had been more awake. I really don't feel like he got to enjoy the wedding at all. But he is, to this day, super happy that it happened when it happened, and, uh and yeah. Yeah, you were there for my first one, weren't you? I'd forgotten, Laura. Not that I intended to forget, but my God, there were a lot of people there and a lot of bananas stressors, like stuff going on with my family in the background and stuff going on with Jason's family in the background. And yeah, it was definitely a thing. Definitely a thing. Such a production. Yeah. Yeah, let's avoid flying right now. That's totally a good point. I'm glad that you made that effort for me, my dear. Thank you. I literally love watching this paint dry, you guys. I know it's taking a while and it's probably boring for you, but it's totally awesome. We were stationed in Germany. I wanted to get married in Amsterdam, but she wanted a big wedding back in Washington State. Getting married in Amsterdam would have been really cool. I love that city. I got to go there for just about 3 days in 2011, and it's just got such a vibe. Totally awesome. He sat playing Nintendo through the ceremony to keep him quiet. Well, he would have been what, 7? Somewhere in there. I got no, he would have been 5 because I got married in 2008 the first time. Damsco. What's Damsco, Dexter? Or is it Damsco? He was 5. Yeah, he would have been just little. Yeah, now he's 17. I can't believe that. Slang for Amsterdam. I did not know that. That's cool. You're not old, honey. You're just a mom. It's totally different. Aga, okay. One of my friends from Regina just bought a place in Amsterdam. It's a very, very cute little spot. I love it. Oh, you're still in touch with them. Hey, Laura? I haven't heard from any of them in forever. whatever. I think the last time I heard from any of them was when you and I went for coffee with Melody when I was down in Calgary that time. Texas. That is a state I don't think you could pay me to move to. I'm hoping it's working for them, though. I'm not sure where exactly. I've seen pictures of the inside and the outside, but I'm not sure where it's located in the city. That was the last time you saw Mel. Yeah. Dutch names are, and so are French names, Dexter. I think it's because, like, as a predominantly English-speaking continent, they don't want to have to deal with the spaces involved in last names. So that's a thing. That's a thing. Word recognition, everything that's separated by a space is a word in English. So if you want a last name to be all one word, you have to take that space out. I'm going to come eventually too, Dexter. I promise. It's just a matter of when. It is a waste of space. You're not wrong. Come on, map. Finish drying. You're almost there. A questionable amount of dishes, hey? Dave just got back 2 weeks ago from Latvia, and he's been gone for just about a year, and already my house is so much messier than what it's been for the last period of time, and I'm just like, "Oh my god." Trying to adjust to living with another human being again is just like, "What? This is not okay." My house was clean, damn it. So, I would be annoyed about a questionable amount of dishes, that's for sure. Chat trip to the Netherlands, I'd be into this. I would be so into this. I think that'd be fun. Dexter would have to find us a good Airbnb because I don't imagine we're all gonna fit in your living room. Yeah, wasn't that post just full of such beautiful tiny homes? I'm so stoked about those. Dave and I eventually wanna build our retirement home, and I want it to have that ridiculous fairy tale cottage vibe. So, that's my plan. We've talked about doing a tiny home, prior to retirement just to see if we can live in it and like it. But Dave is a compulsive collector and has now gotten into 3D printing, so we just have too much stuff to live in even 400 square feet. I think the place we're in right now is 8 or 900, and it's, like, full. So, I can't imagine going into half of this space and still being able to do everything that we do in the space that we currently have, which sometimes feels too small. So, that's a thing. Sweet. It would be the ultimate road trip. I went, a couple of years ago to the Okanagan with a bunch of friends for Myrna's birthday, and we just did a winery tour together, and I love traveling with groups of people. It's a lot of fun. I would totally do it again. It really, really is a diabolical combination, Dexter, you are not wrong. A huge basement and then a tiny home on top. You are completely onto something there, Patrick, I think. Live in half the space, build him a workshop. I think, like, you could he wanted to have, like, multiple tiny homes, like, one for his workshop, one for because he does woodworking too in addition to this 3D printing. So one for a workshop, one for me for a studio, and then one for a house. But then I'm like, we have to like have 3 separate trucks and trailers and convoys to like haul all this stuff. And I'm like, this is just not practical. Like, as much as I love the idea of having my own like private building studio, that just sounds super exciting. It's not a functional dream. So I love the Okanagan too, Marla. It's so amazing. I used to go as a kid down to Salmon Arm on the Shuswap every summer. My grandmother lived there. But yeah, Penticton, Kamloops, just that whole Salmon Arm triangle is like heaven for me. La Kelowna. Kelowna's so great. No, I didn't do the Mexico trip in high school. I could not afford to do it, so we didn't. The lair of an evil scientist. Yeah, it is the chase. Dave is obsessed with this 3D printing thing, you guys, like absolutely obsessed. We used to have 3 3D printers printing in our living room all the time, but he took them to Riga with him when he went, and I was so relieved to just have the silence of my living room, that I made him buy all of the shelving he needed to create a workstation in the basement for our anniversary because I just didn't want to listen to the printers in the living room anymore. I was over it. So we now have dubbed the 4th wedding anniversary that of industrial steel, and I am happier now that the printers are not in my ear constantly. He's largely printing miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons so that we have the minis that we need to play the games that we want to play. I do a lot of mini painting for kicks, and that means there's so much more to paint. Oh my god. But it's pretty fun. So yeah, minis, tile, terrain, that kind of thing. He's pretty obsessed. CCAN conversion homes. Yeah, for sure. I've watched there's a YouTube channel, Tiny Home Customs is the YouTube channel. He's pretty crass but hilarious in my opinion, and does really great tiny home building. I enjoy watching his stuff. He had started a CCAN conversion home the last time I was actively paying attention to his channel. I haven't looked at it in a couple of months now, probably the entire time that Dave's been gone. So, yeah, that's how we get all the minis. Oh my god, Dexter, all of the minis. Oh, I like being your type of dork, Marla. That's exciting. We are definitely dorks, like hardcore. This is a thing that we do. So, and now that I'm older and older, I just care less about other people's opinions about that kind of thing. I'm just content to do what I want to do and be happy doing it, and everybody else can bite me. I've definitely had my fill of trying to make other people happy. Other than like Dave and my friends. I mean, like just the general you people kind of thing. I hate that phrase. You people. No, that's just rude. I should find a better phrase. It's a thing. Samesies. Paint is just about dry in most places. Sorry that we've literally been watching paint dry, people. Wow, something just boomed really heavy across the way. Shook my mic or my camera. There's a lot of construction going on around me now. They're building the big MFRC complex across the way in the field, and they're renovating the queues on the one side of us, and across the street they might be doing something. And yeah, it's just kind of like, wow, so much going on. You have I'm 50, so I have 15 years before I get to the I give a damn what you think phase of life. Why would that change at 65? A genetic thing. Okay, that's fair. Doctors be baffled. Fair enough. All right, how are we doing over here? Good? Not quite. Definitely not dry down in this corner. I sure love the granularity of this paint though. Like, it's just so gorgeous. Yeah, I do need a little fan. I could go get the blow dryer. But the problem with doing like the kind of flooding ink that I do is that if it's too wet, it starts to trail off in patterns again. It doesn't dry down flat. And the drying down flat is what causes the granulation of the paint. And so I don't want to mess with that. It needs to just continue to dry naturally so that we don't end up with textures that we don't want. So just got to be patient and let it do its thing. It's farther along than I thought it was, though, now that I get this end of it down into the light. I think the problem is that I had some liquid latex over here that got mixed in with the paint. So that's going to be gummy and strange, but that'll be okay. We'll work with it. I'm really excited about this coastline. Like, really excited about this coastline. I think it'll be really fun. And I haven't done a portrait orientation map in a long time, so that'll be cool too. You're off for a while. Some semi-impulse buyings. Well, enjoy. Have fun with that. Don't spend too much. You need money for when we come to visit you. Just kidding. You watch paint dry with me any day. Thank you, Marla. Yeah, we could wait. We could world build. We're almost at the 1 hour 30 mark, though. Do you guys want to hang out for longer, or what? Are you sick of me? What's the deal? Hey, Dennis, how you doing? You think you saved a trip to the therapist after this stream? Bye, Dexter. Catch you later. I mean, group therapy, man. As long as you got somebody who knows how to lead that shit, you do okay. That is a true story. All right, let's talk some world building while we wait for the paint to dry. Paint is almost dry, but still, let's do the thing for a bit. What is today? Today is 29th. World building is the red marker. All right. in your house coat and making tea. That sounds perfect. Just chiming in, working from home. Nice. And you're just doing inventory. Okay, well, cool. We can hang out a little bit longer. If we're going to hang out a bit longer, I want to go grab a second cup of coffee. Is that cool? I will be like 4 minutes. Not even 4 minutes. I'll be as fast as I humanly can. And then I will do the thing. Be right back. Hi, dog. How you doing? Okay, I'm back. All right. Start with my loose ends page. Okay, I can do that. Get you to some caffeine. I have it. Yes, living. I'm a wannabe fantasy cartographer. That's a thing. Medically retired vet, drafter. So you kind of build dungeon maps then, Marla, if you're a drafter for a mine. Oh, you make drawings for fabricators. Okay, cool. It's interesting how like army people keep cropping up in my life now. That was never a thing. And now they're everywhere. Has grid lines like D&D. Nice. Okay, loose ends page. What are we doing on the loose ends page, friends? other than fighting with my paper a little bit. Why is this a problem? Come on now. Oh, I see. Sorry, book malfunction. Please bear with me. There we go. Organized now. You're a wannabe artist. Yes, you are, Miss Laura. Hey, man, don't knock on the officers. I'm married to one of those. Just kidding. You can knock on Dave as much as you want. He can take it. You draw a mean stick figure. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. I think my favorite, like, mean stick figure, just to draw about that, is Trogdor. Do you guys know Trogdor? Trogdor! In case you don't know Trogdor, I'm going to post a link to it in the comments because it's amazing. Only because I showed you. Trogdor is just something that brings me immense amounts of joy. So, yes. All right. Where are we and what are we doing? So, in the game last night, my characters made it into the Feywild for the first time. They went briefly on an excursion and did not stay. They did not touch the ground. They were on the back of a dragon. They were landing in Light Forest. So I think that's going to be the first random encounter chart that we deal with. I have space for 4 more random encounters on this chart, and I think I want them to be non-creature encounters. So I need a couple more of those. And then I will have to deal with heavy forest and mountains. So yeah, because they're eventually going to end up going into the mountains. So well, I know lots of people with careers who aren't officers, Patrick. I don't have any dwarves in the Feywild. We could. I had kind of assumed dwarves were not Feywild creatures. I don't know why I assumed that. Am I correct or incorrect in that assumption? Okay, I like that. Infectious spores. Oh, I believe that, yeah, for sure. The Canadian Army is just, there's a lot of nepotism, in my opinion. It's a little bit frustrating, especially because we have the dual official languages issue, which can prevent your promotion. So that's a nuisance issue that I am frustrated with currently. But anyway, let's not talk about that. That'll get me going. All right, so Patrick, you said to pull up my plot hooks page. What are we plot hooking on? When did we break into world building? About 140. Burninating the people and the thatch roof cottages. So last night, yeah, they went into the Feywilds. They kind of had a brief look around. They found a portal. Charles's ranger has a ability out of the Xanthar's Guide to Everything that allows him to sense portals. It's a Gloomstalker ability, I think. I'd have to check the subclass. So he's got the ability to like find his way in and out. He just can't guarantee that where he comes in is where he leaves again, because the portals don't work that way. But yeah, what I want to do is create a hex crawl for them to get from where they need to land into the mountains to find Tessarian, who is a dragon that they have heard about, a song dragon, who has been rumored to have a lyre of building. And they want to know if they can borrow this lyre so that they can repair Vexian, who is a primordial tower that manifests as a human who had been destroyed by the necromancers that had been living in that complex. And so as a result, his manifested human form is severely disabled, and the inside of the tower has been completely ripped out. Like the floors have been removed, the walls have been shambled, the whole 9 yards. It's a very decrepit situation. And they can't bring in regular artisans to come work on them because the towers are located on like a transitional kind of metaphysical space in between planes. So this lyre of building represents their best opportunity to try and go ahead and fix Vexian and help him repair himself so that he can have better health. So they're going to go and approach Tessarian to see if they can borrow this lyre from her. I need to figure out what kind of price she's going to ask for to borrow this artifact, and what kind of conditions that's going to happen under. I have like a bigger reveal planned in connection to being in the Feywild, but I don't want to talk about it on YouTube because there's a chance that my players may watch the videos even though I've asked them not to. And I don't want to wreck the surprise. So yeah, that's a thing. Oh, okay. That makes sense, Patrick. Thank you. I did write yesterday. We had started a separate page for plot hooks. So we wrote yesterday on the Ceridian Coil and the Lamp and Flame for Gatto. So that is the urban game that's going on. I want to work in Halcyon, which is the kind of more traditional sword and sorcery game that's happening in a slightly different area of the world. But for the Ceridian Coil, we decided that they are worshippers of Bane, whose portfolio is war and conquest. They want to start a war on Gatto to destabilize the monarchy. We think that they are tied to a faction other than the Kayan Empire. On their agenda are assassinations and possibly riots, as well as a whisper campaign. They want to insert a doppelganger into a major house. We decided that house was going to be Sapphire House, and the person that they were going to try and mimic was Vangeli Horovis, who's a naval advisor to King Spiridon. Because he had originally been being blackmailed by the Ceridian Coil, and Kaiden went in and rescued the people he was using to pay off his debt or his blackmail issue. So now they're going to double down on using him because he failed them the first time. When we started talking about the Lamp and Flame, I needed a proper name for them, and I needed to know what they wanted to accomplish in Gatto, just more about the objectives for them, period, because I haven't fleshed them out at all. They want to see the monarchy preserved to keep the economy stable. They want to see the maintenance of the status quo in terms of population of the city, financial health and strength of the army and navy, as well as the political independence of Gatto. They want to see a lessening of the power of the nobility because of inheritance and birthright power in favor of a meritocracy, so that you're getting people who actually are competent elevated to highest positions. And they want to see a decrease in the gang wars in Havalis because there's too many casualties and too much disruption. We decided to name them the Lampe Floga, which translates from Greek as the Shining Flame. They have been established in Gatto for 882 years. They existed in another nation before coming to Gado, and we decided that that was the nation of Maysun. We decided that the head of Carnelian House, Laevis Aurelis, is the current head of Lampe Floga, and that they have a stake in the entertainment and merchant quarters. They originally came to Gado to establish trade in an environment that was less restrictive of goods and services than Maysun. We decided that Maysun is a highly regulated magocracy, similar to Aramaleith in the Obsidian Shadow books by Mercedes Lackey and James Mallory, just because that's a really quick way for me to remember what that country is like, even if I'm probably not going to interact with it very often at all. We decided a man named Ratian Asfor, who was human, was from Maysun, and he was the original Lampe Floga founder in Havalis. He made contact with Aurelius when Aurelius was young. Aurelius is an elf and has been in the area of Gado for like 1,500 years. So Maysun, or Ratian, had come over quite a bit younger. They started out as business partners that established a trading company, and then built the group to deal with covert operations. The group back in Maysun had suffered a major setback and disassembly hundreds of years ago when the magocracy came into power there. Stephanie has suggested that Aurelius and Asfor were secretly lovers, and they stayed discreet because it was against Maysun's religious doctrines. They had a family and were stable until Asfor died of old age. And then Aurelius continued on with his very long life, as you do, and has since moved into an additional relationship. The Lampe Floga is anti-magic. They want people to be equal, or at least evaluated on their merit, particularly as this relates to inherited power. So they want regulation or checks on the system of wizards to keep the playing field level, or they want the wizardry to serve the common people. So things like mage lights, mending cantrips, and service in the army and navy. They are tolerant of magic that is the result of deity or patron interaction, because that's outside of the scope of an individual's control. And we decided that in terms of magic regulation in the city, there is a judicial branch concerning magic. So the magic crimes and infractions are dealt with by other appointed mages, because normal people don't understand it or can't control it. Punishment is special magic allowed gladiatorial combat, such as a method of monster regulation for the island. Serious infractions can get the use of a tattoo that seals your spells to bind and strip your magic if crimes warrant it. And winning in the arena implicates the hand of fate or the attention of gods, and is a sign that the combatant is allowed to go free. The Lampe Floga, for recruiting, wants to deal with individuals who have cunning or skills that the group has a deficit of. They want people who are circumspect and discreet. They will not accept wizards or clerics. They don't want the wizards getting too powerful or the gods dictating decision-making. And they want to stay secret because it's easier than becoming an official organization. Patrick had suggested yesterday that perhaps knowledge is considered the realm of the gods, and so arcane actions are seen as intrusions into the gods' realms. And maybe that this was the original schism between the group that stayed in Maysun and the group that came to Gado. So yeah, we're playing with that a little bit. So that was what we were talking about for Gado yesterday. We can continue on with Gado. I think that we're playing Gado this weekend with the big group. So I wouldn't mind doing some work in there some more. Or we can talk about Feywild stuff for the Halcyon campaign, whatever seems more interesting for you guys. You weren't being snippy, darling. I misunderstood. Totally fine. Read the hooks and loose ends page so everyone can be aware of what we need to tie up. You were not snippy. The only hook and loose end that we wrote down yesterday was the splinter groups and fanatics who schismed from the Lampe Floga. We didn't write down anything else that was kind of outstanding in that regard. And we don't need to necessarily get into those schism groups right now, unless we want to, which we have that option for. So I think let's have a review of the stuff that I was working on with the last group game. Let me grab the Gado binder here. So much dog hair everywhere in my life, you guys. Like everywhere in my life. Oh, there is a loose end that I didn't discuss with you guys. Calica's adventuring party. So last game I had my players meet an additional adventuring party that they had never met before. This end of this book is just driving me buggy today. Come on, guys. There we are. And one of the adventuring party was Drow. So maybe we can talk about them too, because I need to know more about them. So the reason why her being Drow is significant is because the Drow are a complex group of people that I am just starting to introduce into my world. I really have a hate on for how Drow have been handled in original D&D. It makes me wonder, like, which women hurt those developers, because the only strictly like matriarchal group in the thing is like BDSM savage and malicious and chaotic, and I'm just like, you really hate women? Like, is that what this is about? So I have been tinkering with my representation of the Drow. There still is that overtone for the dominant culture, but there are splinter cells that are leaving that culture. And there, in particular, is a small floating island nation. It's actually like a flotilla of a bunch of ships that functions like a Cirque du Soleil circus, like a roving festival, called the Brigandar. That is a group basically of expat men who have ceded away from the various matrilineal houses that were abusive and are trying to create their own society that isn't abusive to them. And they're trying to deal with like the repercussions of that abuse and that systemic discrimination. And so that experience of how do you start over when you come from like what has been expressed in D&D as trauma. So I'm super interested in dealing with that in terms of the Bregandar. I don't know why Calica left. As a woman, she would have been privileged to a lot of power and stuff like that within the original houses, but she's clearly left, so I need to know why. She is currently running with a female elven druid and a male human cleric? Fighter? Can't remember. Fighter, I think. So, yeah. Given the hypersexual nerdboy D&D player stereotype, I think the Drow was a heaven made for males into femdom. I think that's entirely possible, but they're just freaking cruel. Like, very cruel. Like, I started reading the first Drizzt book by R.A. Salvatore, and like, it's kind of considered to be like the canon on Drow, and I was just like, wow, these people are vicious. Like, I don't understand how you have a society that actually functions that way. And that might just be my bias towards compassion and stuff showing. But like, I don't understand how you have like an empire of Drow that function on these rules. It just really blows my mind. So maybe I need to read more. Maybe there's like better explanations out there. I haven't done a ton of research into the Drow, but I find it just fascinating. You don't necessarily understand how it works. So let's maybe talk about Calica's people for now, because it would help me to know more about them if they're going to be getting encountered by my players frequently. I'm going to move my candle, light myself on fire, because you guys know I would totally light myself on fire. I am that klutzy. All right, so Calica is a wizard. She is Drow. She is female. Oh, where are the rest of my character sheets for these guys? No. There we go, Erasmus. is a fighter, human, and male. And then Carissa is a druid, a wood elf, and female. Not in the front pocket. I have emptied out the front pocket. But it means that I did just put Calica's stuff in the wrong place. New binder, who this? Gotta get used to this one. So last Gatto game, they started out searching the sewers, which was this map here, which is a Dyson Logos map from the dodecahedron, which is dysonlogos.com, that I then populated with a bunch of like encounters and stuff that they could find. They came in this way, came down and explored this bottom half of the dungeon. They haven't gone up here, so there's a possibility that they may interconnect with that. But they decided to come down through here and then leave out the bottom and return to this temple that Wink had been at previously. Wink is Lisa's character in this game. This is another Dyson Logos map, so dysonlogos.com, that again I populated with the stuff that was useful for me. So they have just finished exploring this temple for the second time and encountered a bunch of different stuff. This is a shrine that was uncovered by a rock slide. This is where they met Calica's team, who were grave robbing in this shrine. And they had an interaction that was just talking. They didn't end up fighting, but they basically prevented Calica's team from taking any additional gear from the grave robbing thing. Started using mini binders, but I use full-size paper protectors with holes punched on top. Works great. Full-size paper protectors. I don't understand how that would work. I am confused. Can't picture it. Okay. So I think I know what they're likely to do. I think they're likely to go back to the sewers and pick up where they left off on this map. So in terms of session planning, yeah, send me a pic. I am curious. In terms of session planning, I think the session itself is fine. So we can focus on the world building. So let's talk about this adventuring party. How long have they been together? Stephanie, should I roll a dice for this? And if so, which dice should I roll? Hole punch the small edge. Roll a d20, or they've been together for 20 years. Grabbing of the dice. Roll. Okay. Let's see. Let's roll the yellow one. They've been together for 3 years. Okay. Let's decide how old they are, because I don't actually know. Let's say Erasmus is 29 human years. Let's say Carissa, who is the druid, is 150 as a wood elf. What does that translate to in human years, roughly? 116 is like 16 years old. Ish. So let's say she's also like 30 human years. And then Calica, I want to be younger. I want her to be like 22, whatever that translates to in Elven years. Okay, so we have that. They've been adventuring together for 3 years. Let's talk about how they met. Let's say Erasmus and Carissa met first. In the woods, okay. Were they searching for something? Were they fighting something? I feel like searching for something, like maybe a grave or a barrow or something. Ooh, they were discovered in a type of barrow for the shrine. There were tombs there. So maybe they were looking for additional barrows of this type, and they've kind of been on a quest to try and find all of them. Searching independently for a rumored Dawnsguard barrow. They were hunting for dinner. And Carissa was shot by Erasmus with a bow while in beast shape. When she turned back into an elf, Erasmus was surprised and chagrined, and offered her a healing potion to repair the damage. Okay. You like it? Okay, cool. They got to talking. Discovered they were looking for the same thing. And decided to work together. Because they could carry more. All right. So, how long did they adventure together for? I think let's roll that on a d4. For 2 years. for meeting Calica. So are Erasmus and Carissa in a relationship, people? Do they view each other as siblings? Are they lovers? Did they get married? Do they tolerate each other barely? I can't imagine that they hate each other if they've worked together this long. Is it strictly a business partnership? Kisses? Okay, so they're lovers. Okay. Since shortly after they met. Okay, so what is Carissa's attitude towards Erasmus? I'm going to say she's fascinated by something about him. A moonlighting scenario. I do not know moonlighting. You must explain. Sibling could be fun. Why don't we have Calica become kind of like the adopted sibling, and then that gives us that sibling element. Yeah, I don't know it, Patrick. I'm sorry. If you hang out with me long enough, you'll realize I live under a rock when it comes to television and cinema. Unrequited love on one end. Okay. So so they've been lovers for a while, but for her, it's not a big deal. But for her, it's casual. Their lifespans being so different means she's not willing to commit. In a serious way. She fully expects to settle down with another elf. All right, Erasmus's attitudes towards Carissa. But refuse to admit it. That would be fun. I think that would be a little complicated to try and play out for NPCs, but I might use that for an NPC that's more directly involved with the party. Like have somebody get lustfully attracted to Daria or Arcus and refuse to admit it. That might be a lot of fun. Erasmus is smitten with Carissa, but frustrated that she doesn't want to get as serious as he does. Feels unrequited in depth of emotional attachment. Okay. How does that sound, folks? Doing okay? So how did they find Calica? And why didn't they kill her if drow are so reviled, especially female drow, as dangerous? That's a good question. Before or after, do people have an opinion? Part of a greater prophecy? Them finding her was, or she is part of, or a plot? A plot could be good. What kind of plot? Maybe in a sympathetic state, she was wounded or something similar. Possibly she saved them or aided them in some big way. They could be the reason that she left. Yeah, absolutely. We could combine Dennis's idea and that one, Marla. Maybe they were captured by her drow house, and her drow house was being awful to them, and she didn't want to see it happen. She was too sympathetic for the morals and mores of that particular situation. So she rescued them and helped them get away, and they invited her to come with instead of staying in such an intolerable situation. How does that sound? Okay, we'll go with that. Come on, pen. There we go. All right. They had been captured by drow during a grave robbing expedition in the Underdark. They were brought as prisoners to Calica's home. They were tortured. At the very least, Erasmus was, because of this whole petty misogyny bullshit. Calica couldn't tolerate it and rescued them. They invited her to leave with them rather than stay in a culture she was at such odds with. Erasmus's and Carissa's attitudes toward Calica. They see her like a little sister. They sometimes have to school her that the casual cruelty that she grew up with, like, she knows it's bad, but she's still ingrained in the culture, right? Feel compelled to help her re-socialize out of the drow matriarch entitlement and cruelty. She's not bad for it. But can get imperious and demanding. Used to being in charge. Spray bottle, no torture. Fair enough. What is Kalika's opinion about Erasmus and Carissa? I think she views them not as older siblings necessarily, because technically she's quite a bit older than they are, even if maturity-wise she's about the same age. Yeah, like, she's used to being in charge and is now definitely seen as the mentee for sure. There's a Gary. Hello, darling. How are you? Rating of the drinking beverages. You're sore. Yeah, your fall. I'm really sorry to hear about that. That sounds like it really sucked. Oh, I'm glad. Soaking is good. Sees them as examples of the kind of lifestyle she's always dreamed of. Does that make her more or less happy? What do you mean, Patrick? Can you expand on that for me? Is she jealous? She might be jealous of their relationship. Let's put that in. Jealous of their relationship wants that level of camaraderie and intimacy, but is grateful to be included in the adventuring, appreciates being part of the team, and the support and stability they offer as she learns to function in a non-drow lifestyle. So I wrote, she's jealous of their relationship and wants that level of camaraderie and intimacy, but is grateful to be included in the adventuring. She appreciates being part of the team and the support and stability they offer as she learns to function in a non-drow lifestyle. Does she keep her jealousy to herself, or is it an acknowledged thing among the three of them? Yeah, right? Like, that's what I mean. Like, the third wheel aspect of it, Marla, you're completely hitting that right on the head. Some resentment of being a third wheel, but also affection for them as friends. In brackets, she didn't have many that weren't trying to manipulate her. At home. Saxon, it's fine. Yeah, like the couple adopted a drow. Absolutely. They're like, we'll just take you in. You'll be ours. Okay. She takes meeting other adventuring groups if friendly, as opportunities to learn more about how the world works outside of her own group. Does that mean that if she found an adventuring group that she clicked with more than Erasmus and Carissa, she would leave them? Or does she feel really attached to them as people because she rescued them? Does she feel responsible for them because she rescued them? Perhaps all of this seeking knowledge of others as part of a drow training society. Well, yeah, she's always like drow are constantly looking for particularly information and flaws in other people that they can exploit. So that would be something she'd have to kind of start training herself to look for like benefits and stuff. So let's make a note of that. Drow society normally fixates on flaws and information that can be exploited for gain. Calica is constantly assessing for weakness. Needs to train herself to assess for positives and strengths.
Hello.
Hi.
No thanks yet.
Okay. Still streaming.
Huh?
I'm still streaming.
Okay.
She's embedded with them to learn and report back. She would stick with her current situation, but slowly becomes close and is generally affectionate now. So she was part of a plot to spring them what did they know that the drow wanted information about? Because that's really interesting. What do they know, though, that would be so important that they would risk losing one of their own? Um, hmm. So they were exploring in the Underdark. Maybe they discovered there's an artifact that they were looking for that's missing. And so they're trying to track it down. Okay, so what I wrote is that the drow realized an important artifact was stolen from an important grave. They're letting Erasmus and Carissa go after it to save them the burden of dealing with the surface, because the drow are still limited by like being hurt by sunlight and stuff in my world. They installed Calica with them as a secret guide / spy so she could bring the artifact back once it was found. But over time, she's grown close and genuinely affectionate towards them and doesn't want to betray them. Maybe she effed up and was an outcast and thought spying would bring her back into drow society. Fubard, yeah. I think it doesn't need to be quite that complicated. I like this version that we've got here. I think that works for me. It's simple enough for an NPC. I won't have to struggle to remember it. But let's go back to the question of like, she's gotten to really enjoy this adventuring life. Would she leave if she found a better party? Or is she committed to staying with Carissa and Erasmus because they're the ones she's gotten attached to? I feel like she's got a lot of like desire to see the world and to meet a lot of different people. Whereas Carissa and Erasmus are just kind of content to keep adventuring like from one place to another. It's more about seeing places and doing things than meeting people. More pros than cons. Okay. So Calica evaluates situations by pros and cons. If there are more pros, she might change what she's doing. For example, if another adventuring party were to offer more of what she wants, she would consider leaving Erasmus and Carissa. This is underscored by the third wheel thing. Okay. As she levels up in adventuring, it would take more and more to return her to her former status in drow society. For sure. For sure. I think she'd always be on friendly terms. Would she be willing to leave and go it alone? Oh, go it alone. Okay. Also willing to leave and go it alone if that's the better option. Okay. Would leave on friendly terms. Okay. So what does she want out of the world? She wants to see people to see as much of the surface as she can. She has intense wanderlust and a fear of being trapped. Or socially restricted. She wants to learn magic. More than the drow spells. Yeah, she'd be very unburdened, for sure. I've lived through that. I know that feeling. It's really liberating. Scary as hell, but really liberating. It kind of gives you an opportunity to just decide how you're going to rebuild everything. That's a good question. To what end does she want to learn magic? Why? To what end? I don't picture her taking the Pokemon route of just wanting to be the best there ever was. To protect herself? Okay, I like that. Yeah, I like that. To protect herself from other drow who may revile her for leaving their society. Technically, she's a traitor. Because she didn't go home. Okay, so does that mean that Erasmus and Carissa found this artifact and that she hasn't returned? Because that's kind of what it's sounding like to me. So, yeah, let's say they did. Erasmus and Carissa found the artifact. But Calica hasn't stolen it and returned with it. Yeah, she seeks magic to counteract the drow magic. For sure. That makes so much sense to me. For sure, for sure. Perhaps they have the artifact but are themselves unaware of it. No, I think that they'd be aware of it if they were looking for it originally. Because if they were unaware of it, they'd probably just give it to her if she asked for it, right? But if they're aware of it, they may have a disagreement about letting it go, which may be like a point of tension in that relationship. They might not know how to use it, maybe, or maybe they had to find it because they were going to sell it, so they have a contract to get it handed over to somebody, and maybe they're adventuring back to where they need to hand it over. You have not failed. There's no failure here. It's all good. I'm just being picky. I do the thing. Pickiness on my part does not constitute failure on your part. You know that, dear. I just think they would be aware of it because they were literally hunting for it in a grave. So that tracks better for me. Yeah. Okay, so if it's not working the way they expect it, um, the artifact isn't working the way they expect it to, so there's some question about whether or not it's the right one. Yeah. That's good. I like that. Calic is using this as an excuse. Not to return. I have not created my artifact. Would she know enough about the artifact to know what it did or how it worked, but wouldn't tell them? Maybe not until the trust is built. She probably knows about it because culturally it would be relevant to her. I have not created it, so we can work on that next. Perhaps the drow don't know how it works either. They are letting the couple figure it out before the drow steal it back. Maybe it only works for drow. Maybe that's why Erasmus and Carissa can't get it to go because they don't have the magic. I mean, Carissa's a druid, but that's not arcane magic. And Erasmus is a fighter, so no magic at all. So let's talk about this artifact. What is it? Throw it out there. The only restriction is it probably needs to be small enough to be portable. Drow cannot do sunlight. Nope. In 5e, it gives them disadvantage on attack rolls and skill checks. It doesn't actually physically harm them. It harmed them in previous editions. Maybe it literally dims the sun. Oh, okay. So it makes it possible for them to be out on the surface. So if they were going to attack the surface or something, this would make it easier for their army to be. And maybe that's why Calica is having an easy time adventuring on the surface. She's close enough to it to benefit from it. A component to a larger ritual. Okay. A component for a larger ritual that would allow an army to breach the surface without harm. Calica benefits from its presence / proximity. It allows her to be on the surface comfortably. A tan pimpled book with a cool mushroom pin on the cover. Pale sun or something other, and it connects to a point high above, creating a magical sunscreen. I would want that if I was an adventuring drow, right? Absolutely. Called Black Hole Sun. Yes, grunge ref. Magic sunscreen. I'm pale. It hits home for me. I went to Mexico, and when I came back, my coworker told me I came back paler. All right, so she's using it. I like the idea, though, that it creates a screen over the sky, blotting out the sun to an extent. You're heading into town now. Okay, have a good one, Steph. Thanks for hanging out. I'll probably wrap up here in like the next 10 minutes because Dave's come home. Have a safe drive, hey? Creates literal shade. Around the body, blotting out the sun. So she can still only use it when that's not going to draw additional attention. I like that because it's not a flawless solution for her to be above the surface. So we'll still draw attention in crowded spaces. Not best for use in cities, etc. So if it creates a physical thing, then wouldn't they know that it's working properly? Carissa and Erasmus? Because it would obviously be reacting with Calica if they can see it. Or maybe can only Calica see it as a result of the dark vision or whatever else drow have going on with their magically enhanced senses? Now I've got Black Hole Sun stuck in my head, which is better than my Sharona. Black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black hole sun, won't you come? Won't you come? Oh man. Not if lore tell them it does something else. Okay, or something more. Yeah, okay. So what does the lore tell them it does? What is the lore about? Okay. Erasmus and Carissa think the artifact. We need a name for this thing, guys. Does something else too, which it doesn't seem to be doing. Hence the question of whether or not they found the right thing. What is it? The lore is a riddle, so they would not associate it with her inherently. Diminisher, you have -1 to naming. But that's such a great pun because dim in is her. Umberstone, I like that. Artifact Umberstone. Let's use that. Greatness. What kind of greatness, Patrick? Because I mean, yeah, like greatness is one of those beautiful words that can be used in so many different ways. But is the lore more specific? Maybe they think it means that you become like a commander of an army, like it gives you special, but no, they don't have access to an army to test that out, so maybe not. Maybe they're expecting it to give them like knowledge or a proficiency of some kind. What else do they expect it to do? Maybe it's like supposed to be like a golden goose and provide you gems or jewels every day. Maybe if you put it into water, it's supposed to purify water. So because it regards the sun, maybe it has property that could control the day. Oh, like time? What do you mean? Time control or control over the seasons. Time control could be like super cool. I need reference material to know how that would work. So that is really interesting because the new campaign guide that Matt Mercer has just put out for Critical Role has a new school of magic called Dunamancy in it that works with time. I am looking to get that source book. So once I have it, I can probably incorporate that in a literal sense, or control over the seasons. Perhaps it speaks to drought. Literally, it's different to each owner. Okay. Affecting lifespans. Oh, affecting lifespans could be good. Marla, I like that. So if it speaks to them literally and is different for each owner, maybe that's why the lore is confused. The Umberstone is sentient then, or sapient. And promises a different boon to each wielder, which is why the lore is confused. Told the previous wielder hi dog. Oh my goodness, what? Oh my goodness, what? I know, I'm almost done. 3 more minutes. You just have to wait. Yes, you do. Transferring the mind to another compatible body, eternal life at the cost of others' deaths from altered carbon. I haven't seen altered carbon, but that sounds really interesting. Okay, so told the previous wielder that it would jump them consciousness into another compatible body. Eternal life at the cost of others' deaths Would make sense why it's in a barrow. I have a Discord. We never use it. It wasn't something that people seemed super interested in, but I can kick it back up if that's what people want to do. That is absolutely a thing. Makes sense why it was in a barrow. It was waiting for a new host. Dexter, you're back. Hi, darling. So hang on then. If it was waiting for a new host, did Erasmus or Carissa get possessed by this thing? Yeah, it's been a long stream. We're just wrapping it up here pretty quick. A world building group on Discord. Nice. If you feel like having me jump in on that, send me a link. I'd be interested. Yeah, how went the money spending? Did you get anything good? Was waiting for a new host. So did Carissa or Erasmus get possessed by this thing? Okay, the artifact lets people consciously transfer their minds. Not possession. Okay, that's fair. Is the artifact a bit of a liar? Sure, I like that. Okay. So I guess we need to figure out what the artifact's objective is if this thing is sentient / sapient. What does the artifact want? Maybe the artifact is part of a group of artifacts and wants to be reunited? I was thinking about doing something with the Rod of Seven, which is like an old school, I think, 2e D&D artifact that was kind of interesting. Okay, so the artifact was part of a suite of artifacts and wants to be reunited. Rod of Seven, question mark. Is it a collector, collecting more and more minds and now trying to return to its origin? It was an original thing that was fractured and has been trying to recover. Maybe it's trying to collect more and more minds to find the rest of its pieces. Maybe they're all kind of like this, each piece, looking for each other. Okay. Okay. That works for me. All right, my darlings. It is after the 3-hour mark, which is a record for us. This is double the time we normally go. So I think let's leave it there for today. I am going to go and see my husband, who is once again in my physical space, and I'm not sick of him yet, so that's awesome. And yeah, this was great, you guys. This was super awesome. Thank you so much. I am looking forward to doing more stuff. I do need to do some more painting over the next 2 days, so I may stream again tomorrow and Sunday. Not sure exactly what time yet, but just to give myself some honesty about being productive in the studio. So if I do, I will post on the Monocled Octopus Facebook page when I'm going live. And if you guys can come hang out, come hang out. If not, it's totally okay. Enjoy throwing your rocks around outside, Miss Marla. For just in time to say bye. Yeah, sorry, Dexter. It was really nice of you to come back, though. That made my day. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great time. Thank you for lurking, Laura. You're still stuck at work. I hope you have a good time. Yeah, Patrick, if I'm around, hopefully you can come by. And you guys have a good one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was a blast. All right. Once you're done, you get to go home. That's awesome. That's awesome. I hope you can too, Marla. I'm trying to keep Thursday and Friday regular things. And if there's additional streams, there's additional streams. So working on it. All right. Bye, all. Catch you later.